Hey, book lovers. This is Natalie with Pippa Pages, and this is going to be my first attempt at trying to bring you all some video content. Now, I want to ask you all to please bear with me because this video is going to be a complete learning experience for me. I've never done any kind of YouTube video before, and I'm recording this on my iPad. My setup's not great right now, so I know the audio probably won't be all that great. Sometimes I'm not 100% sure even where I need to look. So if I'm looking off in different directions, that might be the cause of that. But please bear with me because I really want to go ahead and get started with bringing you all this video content to be able to discuss books with you all. And for me, books have been a huge part of my life since even before I could read, because when my mom was pregnant with me, my dad would read to me whenever I was still in her womb, and whenever I came out, they continued reading to me. As soon as I possibly could learn how to read, I did so, and it's just been a wonderful adventure for me ever since. So I really want to use this platform as a way to discuss literature with other like minded people. And I want this to be just that, a discussion. So every time I bring you a video, I want you all in the comments to continue the discussion. I've titled this a book and brew discussion because my other great love in life is coffee. Also, black cats. I do have two of them. So if they jump into the frame at any moment, sorry about that, but that's just my life. So usually during these little book discussions, I'll be drinking some sort of caffeinated beverage because that's just who I am. My students joke with me and say that if you cut me, blood wouldn't come out, it would be coffee. So that'll give you kind of an idea of how much of it I consume. But anyway, like I was saying, this is my first attempt at a YouTube video, and hopefully as the channel grows, as I get more comfortable with this, you're going to see some upgrades to what I'm able to do. My setup is going to improve. Background will improve. This is just a regular bookshelf at my house, so you can see there's a random assortment of books on it. But today I wanted to talk about something that's been kind of rattling around in my little book brain, and it kind of came to me out of nowhere because the other day I took my aunt shopping and we went to the local Goodwill. Now, obviously, since I love books, I'm never going to pass up a chance to look at books in any shape, form, or fashion. And, normally I don't really think of Goodwill as a place to go book shopping. Now, I do realize they have books, but our local Goodwill the selection is very slim when it comes to good books. But I had some time to kill while I was with her, and so I was like, I'm going to go ahead and look at them. And I came across two very interesting books. Now, the first one, it wasn't interesting for any reason that caused this video in particular. It was just one that I saw and I was like, oh my goodness. So that one was this book right here, and that is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Some of you may remember reading this, when it first came out. I know that's the case for me. If you're of a certain age, as I am, you will remember when this came out. And so for me, this one was a very nostalgic purchase. And it reminds me of a time in my life where I was kind of, carefree and just kind of getting started in things. Life was new and exciting. Not to sound like a bitter old woman or anything. But anyway, it transported me back. And I think that's one of the things that I love about books and reading is that it transports you places. Not just to the places that you're reading about in the book, but if it's a book that you're revisiting, it will transport you back to the place where you were when you read it the first time. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, that's in pretty good condition. I remember really liking the book. I learned a lot while reading this book, and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and get this. It's $1.59, so it wasn't that expensive. But I decided that I was going to go ahead and get it. And for me lately, purchasing books has been like a major decision for me because I've recently been going through and doing a lot of decluttering, and I've been getting rid of some books that I didn't want to hold on to. So I'm trying to be more purposeful with the books that I buy and collect. And so I'm trying to find books that have a special meaning to me or remind me of something, in my past. Just things that make me happy. Okay. So I don't want to have so many books that I'm overwhelmed. And I know a lot of people are okay with that. But as I'm getting older, I'm finding that having fewer things that I truly enjoy and use, that's a very sweet spot. It's a great place for me, and it really helps with my mental health as well, because again, I don't feel overwhelmed and anxious. I feel like I'm actually using the things that I have. So anyway, that's the story of this book. But the other book that I purchased is the one that spurred the idea for this particular video. And that book is this one right here. This is called Sisterhood Everlasting by Brashares. Now, again, I've already mentioned that I'm of a certain age. I'll just go ahead and tell y'all. I'm 41. Just turned 41. So, if you're not that age, you may not even be aware of the series that predated this standalone book. So the series was called The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and pretty much everyone who was a teenager when it came out was obsessed with these books. They were hugely popular. They made a couple movies out of them, and because of that, I had all of the books. I had them whenever, they first published them. I had to have them as soon as they came out. A huge fan of them. But, the series ended. And after the series ended, after the movies came out, I kind of forgot about them. Not because they're bad, certainly not, but just because other things come along. Life happens, and you forget about these things. And then, here in the middle of Goodwill, I come across this book, which I didn't even know existed. So this is, I guess you could call it a sequel, but to me it's more of a continuation. Now, okay, obviously a sequel is a continuation of a story, but for me it's a little bit different because you have the core of the stories, the 4 books that made up the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and that was a unit in and of itself. Then it was over, and so anyway, here I am saying that I'm not going to try to edit these videos any, and then right in the middle of me talking about this lovely book right here, my phone starts ringing. So I guess I'm going to have to do like a jump cut or whatever it's called in YouTube lingo. And here I thought I was going to be able to get through a video and not have to do any editing. I told you, it's really a learning experience. But anyway, getting back to this book, what I was saying was that, you had the original Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, and that story was finished. It wrapped up in those 4 books. We came to love the characters. We went through their story with them, and then it was over. And then here is this book, and the very first line on the little blurb in the back says, "On the cusp of turning 30. So we're picking up with these characters again at a different spot in their life. So, I'm looking forward to getting back in touch with the girls that are in this book, these characters that I loved when I was a teenager. It probably would have hit a little harder if I had found out about this book when I was actually turning 30, but I think it's still going to be a very good read for me. A very good way to, again, reflect on that nostalgia, kind of like with Memoirs of a Geisha. So I guess both of these, in a way, were nostalgia purchases, even though I've never read this one before. And I hadn't really thought about that until right this minute. But anyway, oh, look, I'm going to have to do another jump cut. Sorry, something else was going on. I had to take care of that. It was cat related. Anyway, so I was talking about Sisterhood Everlasting and how this is a continuation of the story that we thought was finished in the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants in the series. And this got me thinking if there were any other instances of this phenomenon happening. Well, phenomenon may not be the best word to use to describe it, but if there were any other instances of a seemingly complete story being revisited after a pretty significant gap in time by the author, by the original author. I know there are some instances where we revisit things. There's a sequel done many years later by a different author, as in the case of like Gone with the Wind. Margaret Mitchell tragically died, and then many years later we got the sequel Scarlet. But this is a completely different situation because you've got the whole series that's finished, and then you've got that gap of time, and then you have the revisiting of the series. And immediately I thought of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes it's a prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, and I don't think I need to remind anyone of how hugely popular the Hunger Games trilogy was. It was so popular, it spurred all kinds of four different movies, five if you count the new one that was based on Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. They were also hugely popular. Now, should Mockingjay have been two movies? Probably not, but that's for a different video. So, here we were thinking the Hunger Games trilogy was the be all end all in the Hunger Games universe. And then Suzanne Collins comes out and says, hey, there's a prequel that I want to share with you all. And you didn't even know that you needed it. And so now we have all of this backstory on Coriolanus Snow. And if you've not read the book, if you've only seen the movie, I highly suggest that you read the book. I don't have a physical copy to show you if you're wondering why is she not holding the book up like she was doing with the other books. I don't have a physical copy of it because I read it on my Kindle. But I would suggest that you read the book, whether it's in a physical copy or a Kindle copy like I did, because it goes so much more in depth. I don't think that Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes should have been one movie. I think it should have been multiple movies. There was enough material in there to do at least two really good movies if they had really gone into it. I could talk about that for a long time because I felt a certain type of way about the adaptation of the book. But again, that's a topic for a different video. But again, we have now all of this backstory on Coriolanus Snow, who was, while he was a pretty major character in the Hunger Games trilogy, he wasn't the focus. So it's kind of like a backstory side quest because we get all of this new information. We learn about new people. But the thing is, what draws us in to this book is our relationship with, not with Coriolanus, because we just sort of knew him, and we knew he was scuzzy and slimy. And in this book, we find out why he's scuzzy and slimy. We have like a passing acquaintance with Tigress. There's some familial names that we're introduced to, and we're like, oh yeah, I know this person's grandkid because of, the Hunger Games trilogy. That is not what we're drawn in by. We're drawn back in by our relationship with the world of Panem. So we're revisiting that world. And it's really easy for us to slip back into it because it makes us comfortable. And for some of us who, were younger when we read that book, it makes us remember our childhood. Now, I was a little older, so that doesn't really apply to me, but it still has a sense of comfort for me because I'm familiar with the setting. So, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes comes out. It's hugely popular. There's a movie. The original Hunger Games trilogy then gets a boost. Turns into a great moneymaker for Suzanne Collins, right? So, she's got another bestseller on her hand, another hugely popular movie. And so she's going to do it again. We're actually going to get the story of Haymitch's Games, which was the second quarter quell. And that book is called Sunrise on the Reaping. And it's going to be out March 18th of 2025. And they've already said they're going to adapt it into a movie in 2026. So this is a formula that seems to work. Now, we'll get back to if it's just a money thing here in a little bit. But I do want to mention another series that this phenomenon seems to apply to, and that's the Percy Jackson series by Riordan. Again, this was a hugely popular series. It struck chords with particularly students who were middle school age. Now, I was a little bit old-ish when this came out, but I still read all of it. I was coaching a middle school academic team at the time, and I read it number one because I love mythology, and the whole concept of the series really spoke to me. But I also wanted to read it because, I'd have something, some common ground to talk to my middle school kids about. And in fact, there were a couple kids on my academic team. Shout out to Trey and Ruby. But whenever I would get the books in, I would read them and we'd pass them around. And, so for me, that's a very special relationship that I had with them. And whenever I think about Percy Jackson in general, I think about that. And, I think that, again, those memories, those relationships, that's why we're drawn back into these worlds. And, I'm sure that Trey and Ruby both fondly remember their time reading the Percy Jackson books. And so, again, we had the Percy Jackson series. It was over with the Last Olympian. And then 2023, look what comes out. The Chalice of the Gods. And in this book, again, it's that same formula. There's a gap, and Riordan then comes along and revisits his character. In this book, Percy's trying to get into college. It's just that continuation in a previously established universe. Now, a lot of you could probably argue and say, oh, well, we had, after the original Percy Jackson series, we had the Heroes of Olympus, and we had Trials of Apollo, and all of those that were in that Rick Riordan universe. And Percy was mentioned in those stories. He was a character. He'd pop up occasionally in those. But he's not been the focus of a story, a standalone book, since The Last Olympian, which was the last of his series. And that was in 2009. So this book comes out 14 years later. 14 years. That's a pretty significant gap. And it also correlates with the release of the Percy Jackson series on Disney Plus. So, again, is it a marketing thing? Bringing it out at the same time, here we are revisiting Percy Jackson, and it's like, oh, by the way, if you want to revisit the series, you can watch it now if you want to. But I do think it's interesting that, again, like with Suzanne Collins, she's going to do a second book. Well, Rick Riordan has said, oh, this is going to be a trilogy. The next book is going to be entitled Wrath of the Triple Goddess, and it is set to come out September 24th of this year, so 2024. September 24th, 2024, Wrath of the Triple Goddess is going to be the next book in this trilogy, this Percy Jackson trilogy that we're getting after 14 years of an absence of a book with Percy as the main character. So, I personally really think it's wonderful that authors have so much creativity and so much material that they want to share about these specific characters, and that they can give us, backstory on some of the characters. Now, is elaborating on a backstory always a good idea? I don't know. We ended up getting a whole lot of backstory on Darth Vader with the prequel trilogy in Star Wars, and I don't know that we needed all of that. But, I'm a diehard original trilogy girl. But I think with these books, what we gain is definitely beneficial. It's not just, oh, I'm doing this because I can. It's, I'm doing this because I have more information to share, and it's good, and it's good stuff. It's well thought out. And while I have not, yet read this one, I think that it's going to fit right into that mold as well. It's got good information about this world, life lessons that I can still learn, and it's going to let me relive that time in my life. It's going to let me reconnect with those characters and grow with them. And I think that as long as the world building is great, the characters aren't completely changed and doing things that are really out of character, and we see growth in them, I think that's what is important about things like this, these continuations, if you will. So, what do you all think about this? What are your thoughts on this topic? Am I missing some examples? Am I missing the point altogether? Or are you just like, oh, these are just sequels and it doesn't really matter? Am I just feeling this way because I'm having a little nostalgia trip? Not really sure. So if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, please share them below. Like I said, I would love for this to be a book and brew discuss, if you will. So, if you've got any comments, questions, concerns, comment below. Let's start a discussion about this, and I'll see you next time.